Tom Pato has a degree in oceanographic technology from FIT and graduated with honors. During his 40 years in and under the water, Tom has worked for the U.S. Navy, the Smithsonian Institute, and was the founder of his own subsea manufacturing and service company, Total Marine Technology, where he retired. It had a workforce of 300 engineers. He speaks about global warming and has chosen the topic because it is talked about on many different levels and is widely misrepresented. Tom uses public articles, together with his own thoughts, to illustrate that man's influence on climate change is not nearly as damaging as we had been led to believe. His conclusion will also present what is going to eventually happen to man in the future. Click the links to view videos and galleries with more information. Tom Pato has written the following essay. I'm going to use a few analogies to help answer the global warming issue. I would like to start by taking a snowball and spinning it. The ball can be balanced at any point and it will spin. The ball represents the topic and the spin represents the quest for control. Global warming activists have spun it on so many points it now looks like a pincushion. Some of the spin topics were global cooling, then global warming. Now the activists are spinning what they refer to as climate change. Climate change is a foggy definition that allows them to spin whatever topic they like. The Earth has been here for 4.5 billion years, and in that time, it has had climate changes from ice ages to droughts to heat waves and floods. The concentration of life gases, oxygen, and the heavier-than-air gas, carbon dioxide, have all varied during this time. In addition to the life gases, methane in large quantities has been percolating out of the Earth's thermogenic structures for millions of years. This leaking is really obvious in lakes and in the waters of the oceans today. It's not as obvious on land. I would estimate that there are thousands of gas leaks on land. Activists have proclaimed that man and cows are also producing methane and carbon dioxide and that they are responsible for global warming. My thoughts are that neither industry, man, cows, nor dinosaurs have contributed to global warming. My question is then, are the gases we produce today really a factor? The activists try to prove this by showing the global warming video that depicts the ice caps melting. The activists want you to believe that global warming causes this. We say, wow, did you see that? Now I believe those pictures are proof that global warming is real. We need to do something about it now. And with that, the global warming activists have gained control. This drives me crazy. The melting of the ice caps at the interface of ice and water is seasonal, and it is an indication that the Earth keeps itself in temperature balance. Now, I'm going to talk about 3 real effects on climate change. These effects should help prove my hypothesis that man is not responsible for global warming. Solar flares are the main reason for the temperature increase in the short term. The activists are either unaware of this effect or are using it for control. This increase can last for decades, but the activists say it is long-term climate direction in which the Earth is headed. This is why they get weather that is not favorable to their predictions. They are not seeing it as a cycle. This is also the reason why weathermen don't always get their predictions right. Number 1, solar flares are the main reason for the temperature increasing in the short term. Number 2, the least known effect on the weather is the Milankovitch cycle, which is the distance relationship the Earth has to the Sun at varying times. I call this the compound differential positions, or CDP. Here are the factors that make up these varying cycles. Earth's wobble, the moon's compounding effect on the Earth's wobble, Earth's elliptical orbit oscillating in pitch and yaw, and eclipses, lunar and solar. When these distances from the Sun reach their furthest positions at the same time, it causes a cooling effect. The opposite occurs when they are at their closest positions. It's a warming effect. You can combine these 4 effects in different ways, causing varying degrees of short-term climate change. Examples are the large pop-up storms that happen now and then, such as the 100-year storm, the 50-year storm, etc. As you see, the timing of these storms can be years apart, and they repeat themselves on an irregular cycle. The third and largest effect on climate change is the Earth's tilted axis and its tilt direction. They cause the four seasons. Changing the degrees of this angle and its direction causes the varying dramatic differences in the weather cycle. Could it be that the evidence showing carbon dioxide differences in past history were caused by one event, causing the other to start at the same time? In other words, the carbon dioxide argument is 180 degrees out. I feel it was the asteroids hitting and changing the Earth's tilt and tilt direction. This changed the cycle period in climate variances. It also killed a large number of plants and animals. The asteroids explode when they enter the atmosphere. Their explosion would have made a disparity between the types of animals killed. These animals can be identified as oxygen and carbon dioxide users. We need to ask ourselves a couple of questions. What was the production of gas after one of these explosions? Could this be the reason we see a variance in life gases, oxygen, and carbon dioxide when we core into the ice? In short, the weather on a given spot at a given time on the Earth is the direct relationship of its distance and angle to and from the sun. Other than asteroids, there is only one large mitigating effect, and it is water vapor. Water vapor can vary the amount of energy hitting the Earth. Did you know that water vapor is the only effective greenhouse gas? It makes up to 20% of the Earth's atmosphere. Just have a look outside. The global warming activists don't talk about this at all. The gases that the activists do talk about only comprise about 1% of the atmosphere. Gee, maybe they should put water vapor on their list of greenhouse gases. Could you imagine the regulations to minimize water vapor and the effects of those regulations on us? This is the reason they don't sell water vapor as a greenhouse gas. They just couldn't do it. Conclusion: man is not responsible for climate change. The first major cause of global climate change is the repeated impacts of asteroids. The next asteroid that hits the Earth needs only to change our axis a little. This would put us into a real climate change, not necessarily cold. Solar flares are the second cause of the climate changes. The heating effect of the solar flares can last for decades. Either the global warming activists do not understand it, or they are just using it as a Trojan horse to promote their agenda. They spin their gloom and doom to make us feel that this is where we are headed in the long term. This is how they keep their control alive for their political agenda and the redistribution of wealth. It looks like a few people are benefiting along the way. The third cause of climate change is the Milankovitch cycle. This is where the combination of the Earth's positions varies in relationship to the sun. The compound differential positions vary at different times and in different amounts. Some of the results of these short-term effects are storms that happen with no warning. These storms have cycles, but they vary in the cycle period. Some of the unpredictable storm examples are the 100-year storm, the 50-year storm, and how many times have we said, remember the storm back in 19 whatever? The activists are spinning the solar flare event saying that this is a long-term effect, but this has been interrupted due to the Milankovitch cycles. The activists have been caught with a few surprises because of it. Here are a couple of examples. One is the 2008 Global Warming Conference in Scandinavia, where a blizzard occurred and froze the coast. Another one was the 2013 Global Warming Research Vessel, which became trapped in the Antarctic ice during its summer. Incidents like these are starting to affect the credibility of global warming activists. Now, they need to come up with something that will cover their past spins in order to make future spins more credible. So they have coined the phrase global climate change. This blurs future spins regarding temperature. This allows them to claim any directional change in temperature as evidence for their agenda. With this latest buzz phrase, the activists hope they can stay in control. They use the ice ages of the past by saying, The ice ages were caused by carbon dioxide buildup, and since the human race produces carbon dioxide, we are now one of the activists' classic problems. I have said the activists manufacture a crisis by putting a large value on a single event. But the Milankovitch cycle and solar flares both make it difficult for activists to keep to their spin regarding climate change. If there could be a global climate change influenced by man, it would be very small. If we looked at the multitude of influences on the climate and then assign true values to these influences, they may actually discover the true story of global climate change. But it may not be a drastic story that activists want. It may only be a very small influence over the few years that industry has been in existence on the planet. To this point, I've been talking about global warming. Now, let me tell you what is really going to happen to our planet in the future, and it has nothing to do with global warming. A real problem is the Earth's journey into outer space. As our orbit moves further away from the sun, we will get colder and we will freeze to death. But at the same time, the sun is growing larger and larger, which could eventually burn us to death. I feel we will freeze first. We cannot stop either one of these. The industrialized world is not to blame for either of these realities. These are on the shoulders of the relationship between the sun and Earth. The powers that be are penalizing countries they feel are contributing to global warming by collecting huge monetary fines. Then they redistribute these monies to underdeveloped nations, presumably to help those nations develop. But as those nations develop, it is inevitable that they will become industrialized, which means that the global warming activists are only adding to global warming even more. This seems a bit silly. You would think that they would use the money now for research, not for redistribution. This method of penalizing is contradictory to their spin. So since there is no global warming caused by man, then the penalties can be removed. To the global warming activists, I say, if you talk the talk, you have to walk the walk. If the activists are to be believed, they need to stop using anything that has a connection to the purported climate change argument, like flying in their jets to conferences, and they also need to stop eating because the production of food involves the transport of goods and the removal of waste, both of which produce carbon dioxide. In summary, no matter how you look at the carbon dioxide dilemma, the activists do not fare too well. If you take the side that carbon dioxide does not have any effect on the climate, it's a moot point for the activists. If you consider our inevitable fate that the planet is spiraling out into cold, dark space, then we actually need global warming in order to save ourselves. Now, let us use those spin results to heat the Earth by manufacturing more carbon dioxide and buy us a little more time on our journey into cold, dark space. That would be the logical approach to their purported argument. Oh, they will not like that. Do you know that the clouds have the biggest climate effect when talking about greenhouse gases? They can reflect or retain solar radiation. These effects tend to balance out in the phenomenon referred to as the radiation budget. If I had to choose what side of the temperature balance is favored, I would choose that the temperature would be slightly on the cooling side. I would like to leave you with this: the snowball is melting.